Hello, and welcome back to another episode of YourGift.Life podcast. I'm Dave, and again with me tonight is Toby, and our special guest, London Roth, is here, and really excited to talk to London and hear a little bit more about her work in the nonprofit space, and specifically with the Ronald McDonald House. But welcome, London.
Thank you, Toby and Dave. I'm really looking forward to spending some time with you, and really appreciate you reaching out to learn more about Ronald McDonald House.
Yeah, we saw that you had shared a post and a pretty cool little summary on LinkedIn, and we thought, man, we should, we know London. We've worked with her at Humana over the years, and we should have her on and hear some stories. So this would be great.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned LinkedIn. I'd also seen some of your posts about the work you're doing with your gift, and I had checked out some of your podcasts. So it's an honor to be a part of one and to get to hang out with you two.
Awesome. Yeah. So, tell us a little bit, how long have you been working with Ronald McDonald House?
Yeah, so I'll start by sharing a little bit about how I first got connected with Ronald McDonald House, and then I'll share a little bit more about the organization and what it does, which is provide a home away from home for families of children receiving medical care here in Louisville. So I moved to Louisville in 2007. I moved here for a job, thought I'd be here a year or two. That was 14 years ago, fell in love with this community. One of the first experiences I did when I moved here was a Leadership Louisville Center program called Ignite Louisville. And that paired about 40 to 50 leaders, those passionate about the community, together to learn about not only leadership skills, but we also learned about nonprofits all across the community. And then we were put on teams where we worked on a project for a nonprofit. And different teams worked on different types of projects. It might have been developing a strategic plan or doing a fundraiser, really what that organization needed. And so I had a chance to work with a great nonprofit through that experience. But one of my team members in Ignite Louisville was Hal Headley. And Hal has been and still is the executive director of Ronald McDonald House. And he sort of pulled me in and said, hey, I want you to come down to the house, take a tour, get to know a little bit about what we're about, maybe do some volunteering. And so I think it was 2008, 2009, I started volunteering with the development committee, and shortly thereafter joined their board and have been volunteering with them ever since. So yeah, about I guess 12, 13 years or so.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize that you were a transplant to Louisville. And it's one of those cities I've never left. I was born and raised here, but you hear and you meet folks all the time, especially through Humana, that have come to Louisville, for work and then have just fallen in love with it. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I knew no one when I moved here. But like I said, I thought, I can go anywhere for 2 years, and it just quickly sucks you in. Kind of the culture here and the people. It's a great community. So transplant.
You brought the family with you, right? So you have how many kids now?
Yeah, so actually met my husband here, who's born and raised. He's 5th generation in a family business. And then we have 2 little ones, an 8-year-old girl, Navy, and a 6-year-old boy, Ryder. So they're watching, I think, Shanghai Nights right now in the other room with my husband.
My wife and kids.
Yeah.
Did you say Navy?
Yeah, you got Navy. Yep, like the color
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things when we were trying to name our kids, I was thinking about names that would just stick to somebody. You're like, everybody will remember that name, and my wife never liked any of the names that were that I picked out or anything like that. But that's an awesome. Both of those names are wonderful, and I think are ones that kids will just absolutely love when they grow up, because that you just never really know. But that's off the topic a little bit, but I just thought that was neat.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. My mom came up with that years ago, far before I was ever even, married or thinking children, but it stuck with me. So yeah, and it fits her well. They both fit well. Yeah.
Now, back with the Ronald McDonald House, where are they located?
Yeah, so they're at the corner of, and they recently expanded last year. So in the corner of First and Chestnut Street. So they are about a block and a half from Norton Children's, which is where they really, the proximity is so convenient for families who are spending time at the hospital because their children are getting medical care there. So yeah, I mean, I would love to share a little bit about the history of Ronald McDonald House. Is pretty cool. I'd love to share a little bit about Ronald McDonald House in general, and then I'll talk about the Louisville House. Because I think a lot of people, what I found is a lot of people have heard of Ronald McDonald House, but then if you ask them, what does it do? What is it? Who does it support? A lot of people don't know. So back in 1974, a little trivia, if you're ever playing at the bar, a Philadelphia Eagles player had to kind of lived on the outskirts of Philly and had to, his child got sick. I believe it was leukemia. And he and his wife had to go into the hospital for all sorts of treatment and chemotherapy and such. And they noticed that, gosh, there's a lot of people sleeping in the hallways, in the waiting rooms, eating out of vending machines, even maybe sleeping in their car for a few hours of respite while their children are getting treatments and care. And they said, there's got to be something better than this. So the Eagles, together with McDonald's in the area and the community, bought a house that was really near the Philadelphia Children's Hospital and created the first Ronald McDonald House, where families could stay and have a warm meal, a comfortable place to have a few hours of solace or to sleep overnight while their children are in the hospital. So they didn't have to go worry about staying in a hotel, spending money that they might not have had. You know, medical care is so expensive, or they didn't have to leave their children behind with someone else. They could have some support and care for them at the Ronald McDonald House. So that was how it first started in 74 in Philadelphia. And then we had a family here in Louisville in 1981 who the child was struggling with a rare form of cancer, I think it's neuroblastema. And an oncologist here, Dr. Bertoloni, who's still a very important part of Ronald McDonald House, had read a story in Reader's Digest about this house in Philadelphia and said, it would be great if we could do something like that here. So they created the first one here with, I think, something like maybe 19 rooms. And it's been in the same location, but like I mentioned earlier, it's expanded from that 19 rooms to just last year, they opened and expanded to 56.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Is it usually pretty full?
It is. Now, of course, COVID, like with everything else, it's changed quite a bit. So the cool part about Ronald McDonald House Charities of Kentuckiana is it never once closed its doors during all of COVID. Last March, they did have to pause checking new families in. So there was actually a time when there were only 3 families because as people checked out, they weren't checking new families in. So they said anyone who's there can stay as long as they want. But I think it was back in June, July, they started allowing families back in. But yeah, they, they'll have be at 100. That's why they had to expand, because we'd be upwards of 100% capacity and sometimes turning people away and having to refer them to hotels or things like that.
How do people get in touch with the Ronald McDonald House? If they knew they were coming in town, say they were going to Norton's Children, and how do they even reach you? How do they know to reach you?
Yeah, so Ronald McDonald House has really strong relationships with the local hospitals. Of course, Norton Children's, but Norton Children and Families and Fraser Rehab. And so typically it's a doctor or a social worker that'll make that recommendation and say, hey, you're going to be here for a while, or you're going to come in for appointments on occasion. This is an excellent resource, not only for the accommodations to stay and have a warm meal, but there's a lot of wraparound services in terms of support and simply being with other families who are going through the same thing as you. It offers that, a greater sense of care when you're going through such a scary moment.
How do they do the coordination of just the scheduling, the wait list, and making sure it's all aligned with the need of the surgery and the procedures and all the things that come along with it?
Yeah, well, there are 13 team members at Ronald McDonald House who are extremely dedicated and so proficient at what they do in terms of keeping that house moving effectively. And then hundreds of volunteers who spend time, and the staff and the volunteers really help manage that scheduling. When you walk in the house, there's a big board on the wall, and they're thoughtful about privacy, but you can see last names, who's checked in, who's checked out. And it really, it's powerful. If you go to tour or visit the house, it's so powerful to see, wow, here's all the families that are staying here and that are experiencing a potentially really scary time in their lives, but they're surrounded by care at the house and have those resources to make it a little bit more palatable and comfortable while they're in town. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to ask, does the house bring any other resources to bear, like counseling or faith-based ministries if it's needed or desired for those families?
That's an excellent question. I don't know about I don't know. I'll have to check on that. I can't say for certain. I would imagine yes. But I'll check on that and get back with you.
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a children's room. They've got library. They've got space on every floor for people to either come together in small groups or larger groups. They've got the big dining facility where they have one of their most popular volunteer opportunities is called Adopt a Meal. And so, and I'll tell you what, that gets filled up months in advance. If you're looking for a volunteer activity with your team, you got to get on their calendar early. But that allows teams, families to go in and prepare a meal for all of the guests who are staying at Ronald McDonald House. Even through COVID, last year, I believe they served 430 meals. So they serve every night and then brunch on Saturday and Sunday. But they have the option for people to come into that large dining area and have a warm meal, or there's kitchens in every space where they can have some private time. But yeah, good question, Dave. I'll follow up with you on that one.
That's cool. What's the average length of time that a family spends there?
The average is around 7-8 days, but last year they had someone for 233. So it runs the gamut. And then Fraser Rehab has programs that are so unique that there are people from not only around the country, but around the globe that come and will spend months at a time going through their rehabilitation programs. So yeah, whatever that family needs, they are welcome. And many will come multiple times if there's follow-up surgeries or visits required. And it's like they have that family to come back to each time they come here.
I'm sure go ahead, Toby.
Yeah, you mentioned family, and one of the things that I actually know about the Ronald McDonald House was I met someone probably, 15 years ago that was coming in town. They were from Cincinnati, and they were coming in town it was a guy, and his sister was coming in for treatment, and it was his younger sister.
Yep.
And they stayed at the Ronald McDonald House, and I met them at a pool hall just because they were out and they were talking about staying there. And probably within the last year or so, I messaged him on Facebook, and he was talking about how he still keeps in touch with some of the folks that he stayed there at the Ronald McDonald House. And he goes, it was like a big family. When you were there, you were treated like family. So, I mean,
love that.
I've never been there, but I would, like you said, if you take your breath away when you go in there and see the photos and the things like that. So I can only imagine.
Completely. And I think, I know we're talking primarily about Louisville and Southern Indiana, but there are, I want to say 365 houses across the globe. They're in 64 countries. There's 365 houses. Wow. So if someone's listening to this podcast and they're in another city, I'd encourage you to Google and look for your closest Ronald McDonald House. And Toby, to your point, some people are traveling on vacation when their child has an accident and has to go to the hospital, and they end up staying at one in a city that's not their own. So there's a whole host of reasons that take people to a Ronald McDonald House that you might not imagine. But yeah, I do think it creates that family feel. Becoming a mom, this organization has taken a whole new space in my heart, because as you have children, you imagine yourself in the situation that these families are in. And every year they have a gala called McDazzle, and it's one of their largest fundraisers of the year. And they always bring a family to speak and share about their experience. And I'll tell you, there is not a dry eye in the audience as they share their experience, because you feel what they are a piece of what they felt and experienced, and it's so powerful.
I bet. I know you got to be sensitive, but are there any stories that you remember that just kind of really resonate?
I think not a specific story, but more generally, I think the ones that stick with me are the ones who've come from either another country or out of state and are staying for months at a time, and how Louisville just wraps its arms around these families. And another thing that local organizations do is they'll donate tickets. Maybe it's a ticket to Derby Dinner Playhouse or to something at the Kentucky Center for the Art, but different local organizations will provide experiences. Maybe it's Yum Center, so that either family members or the child, if they're well enough, can get out and experience our community and feel somewhat, try to forget about some of the pain or angst of going through their surgery. So I think stories of people really kind of settling in and feeling that sense of home and community and being loved by our city, that's memorable for me.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. How does the funding work for them? Much like many other nonprofits, I'm sure there's grants at play and corporate sponsors, but also the annual fundraiser. Are there ways that individuals can also go on a website and donate if called?
Definitely. So a lot of people, so I mentioned with the first house in Philadelphia, McDonald's was very involved, and they've certainly been involved here in Louisville as well. McDonald's is a really terrific partner of Ronald McDonald Houses. Ronald McDonald Houses weren't founded to be subsidized by McDonald's. So McDonald's provides about 10% here in Louisville of the operating budget, which is about $2 million. So contributions by individuals, either in kind or financial, and also through corporations, is the lion's share of how we have our operating budget. So there's absolutely ways. If you go to Ronald McDonald House's website, if you Google it, and it's Ronald McDonald House Charities of Kentuckiana, there's, of course, the simple way to donate there through financially, but there's other ways to support. One fun one that some of the listeners, especially around this neck of the woods, might get excited about is next week we go live with one of our more recent and popular fundraisers. It's a Pappy Van Winkle flight fundraiser. So for $100, you can get a ticket to win, and I think they're only selling a certain amount. Maybe it's 200 or 250. And you can get a bottle of 10, 12, 15, 20, whatever. I wrote it down so I would not forget.
23.
Yes. Good. You got it. Yeah. So, which is pretty exciting. So that's one. They've got golf scramble. They've got a clay shooting fundraiser. Another really simple way is to support them is they have a wish list through Amazon, and all of this is on their website. But if you can go see their wish list of things they might need for the house, like could be something like paper towels or cleaners or things to keep the families comfortable. And you can also set Amazon Smile, if y'all are familiar with that, to where Ronald McDonald House is your charity of choice. And similarly, you could do that with Kroger, so that when you shop for groceries, things that you're already doing, if you're already shopping on Amazon or you're already going to Kroger, you can have a portion of what you spend go to Ronald McDonald House. So those are a few ways.
One way that I know of and I'm not exactly sure where the money goes directly through McDonald's or what, but last night I got me a Shamrock Shake
Oh, I
where
love
where
it.
where a dollar goes towards the Ronald. I had to get the Shamrock Shake. I mean,
Yes.
it said that it was going to support the Ronald McDonald House, so I had to do it.
Yes, I love it, Toby. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I forgot to share that. There's a couple ways you can give it wrong at McDonald's. You might have seen, and I know not as many of us are going into the store these days, but they've got the collect your change boxes up at the registers, and anything you put there goes to Ronald McDonald House. And then they also have a roundup program. So if you go get your, I'm just saying, maybe a friend of mine likes to go and get their bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits, and it's whatever it comes out to be. You can say, "Can I round up?" And they'll put the additional amount of change towards Ronald McDonald House. So those are, I'm glad you mentioned that. A couple ways through McDonald's that you can support and get your Shamrock Shake, Toby,
Yeah.
for limited time.
So Toby doesn't need an excuse. Toby doesn't need an excuse to get a milkshake, but that was a good one for sure.
Well, what's funny is I was going to McDonald's last night because my son had a basketball game, and I was like, I don't really need anything, so I wasn't going to get anything. And then I saw a big Shamrock Shake, and then at the bottom it said a dollar goes towards Ronald McDonald. I said I had to get one, so I really wasn't going to get one until I saw that.
That's awesome.
You were a marketer's dream, Toby.
But I didn't realize that they would do the roundup. I know that some places actually, when you're ordering, they would say, "Would you like to round up to the next dollar to support blank, whatever it is?" I know Taco Bell has done things like that, but I don't know that I've had a McDonald's actually ask me that. But from now on, anytime I go there, I will purposely. Yeah, I will do that, certainly. I mean, why not? I mean, it's under a dollar, obviously, and why not?
Something I forgot to mention. So, Ronald McDonald House, any family stays at Ronald McDonald House free of charge. It costs about $108 a night for Ronald McDonald House to house someone. So I just wanted to give y'all a feel for when you donate to the house or purchase supplies or round up, your money is going towards that $108 for one family to be able to stay at Ronald McDonald House for a night. And I think it's pretty great that they take that financial piece off the table, that it's not a concern, that that's one less thing for a family in potentially crisis to think about.
So you mentioned that they had the volunteers that they would do cooking the meals. What other things could volunteers do? I didn't know if there was any other opportunities other than just cooking the meals.
Yep. So there's a host of jobs at the house that you can do, from helping to clean and stock supplies and that sort of thing. So there's roles at the house, and then fundraising. They love volunteers to help plan fundraisers and to help bring new people to the home, help schedule or even facilitate tours. So there's a host of ways beyond doing the adopt a meal only. Yeah, good question. One other thing too that's pretty cool. Louisville was the first Ronald McDonald House in the country to establish what's called family rooms at our local hospital. So, when there's a good idea, others will model it, which we love. So at Norton Children's and Family, and at Frazier, there's what's called a Ronald McDonald House family room. And so whereas the house is located at First and Chestnut on First Street, these are rooms actually in the hospitals themselves that are respite for the families. It's a way for them to kind of get some peace and quiet. they need to take a nap, so they don't have to go out and sit in their cars and take a nap, or maybe they don't want to be as far away as the house. They want to be really close to if their child needs them, but still be able to sit down, have some food, not just a vending machine food, but actually and kind of be out of, have the kind of some private, quiet space for themselves. So that's pretty cool that was started here, and those are staffed by Ronald McDonald House volunteers. So yeah, that's pretty neat too. And those serve a lot of families. I think 400 last year.
Wow. Are there income-based requirements to qualify for a room at Ronald McDonald House, or they help anyone in need?
Anyone in need. It is outside. If you have to live outside Jefferson, Floyd, or Clark, I believe. So it's based on, do you have a certain ways to go to be able to come into get services. So if you're in town, they know you have somewhere to be or to go home to, but it's for those who live further out. So, but beyond that, no, anyone can stay.
Now, if the patient is healthy enough, do they stay in the house with the family, or are these?
Yeah. Yep. So it could be a checkup, follow-up appointment when they're doing all better, which is wonderful. So yes.
That's cool.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, the three of us are in the health and well-being space. So I know we can really appreciate this. There's a lot of research out there that speaks to how children will heal more quickly when they're surrounded by their family. So there's a lot of so much value, beyond what we might see on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we want to be around our family. There's actually healing and health benefits to it, which is really fascinating to me.
Well, you have, deep experience just in your profession as well around, the social determinants of health and how important housing and stable housing, all that is, and how this shows up even to meet those needs, even in a short-term basis, can go a long, long way to overall health and well-being.
Yep.
Yeah.
You mentioned the housing piece, but also the loneliness and social isolation and the importance of relationships. So yeah, you bet.
Well, and healthy meals. I mean, you check a ton of boxes, right there with the Ronald McDonald House. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you'd love to share, or make sure that either families in need or folks that just want to give back and get involved, you'd want to leave them with?
Yeah. I'm checking my list, make sure I covered everything. Yeah, well, one of the things that Ronald McDonald House is working on right now is a strategic plan. So for the last, I would say 5+ years, the house has really been focused on this expansion, on allowing Ronald McDonald House to serve more families, not have to turn anyone away. And so it's so proud of the support of this community and its donors and McDonald's corporate and everyone who enabled them to grow and expand and renovate their old building to be able to accommodate 56 families. And now, so that's where the strategy of the organization has been focused for the last number of years. And now it's really excited that we've kind of got that stability there and have really tightened and done such a nice job with operations and looking at what's next. What do the next 3 years look like in terms of quality for the families? How can we increase the experience that our families staying with us get to have? What are some of those, Dave, to your earlier questions, wraparound services and support opportunities for the families, and how can we increase those? So I was on the board for about 6 years, then I took a little break when my work at Humana turned more community focused. I intentionally decided to be a little bit more neutral in some of my community giving. And with a role change last year, I was excited to go back to more and deeper volunteer opportunities. So I'm just rejoining the board as of January, and so excited to get back in and get caught up and figure out how I can be of service to such an incredible team of staff and volunteers.
One thing that just came to me that we didn't necessarily talk about is how do the local, you've named the hospitals that you are, most closely connected to, in location, but do they see you all as a partner? I assume this is it could be seen as an asset for Norton Children's to like help, bring them business in some way to help families in need. Do they help? Are they pretty well connected?
Absolutely. Yes. I from where I sit, I see that as such an important and strong partnership. And we have representation on our board from our local hospitals, which is great. And keeping that connection close and making sure we're talking well. And so, yes, I think we both support one another's goals.
Cool.
Toby, were you going to?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is great about when we talk to anyone who's doing things like the nonprofit work or fostering kids, they're providing service for others. But you can see it on your face and hear it in your voice that it's doing more for you than you could possibly do for them. And so I just think it's amazing that and it just wants. This is why I think this podcast is hopefully helping people understand the more that you give and the more that you do, it's going to benefit you probably as much or more than anybody you're giving to.
Oh, 100%, 100%, Toby. One of the things from listening to some of your other sessions and including as you guys kicked things off with your own why, I was thinking about my why, and I was thinking about how it's evolved over time. And with Candor, I think it started more internally motivated as I began getting more involved in the community because I saw it as a way to meet new people, to develop and practice skills that maybe I wasn't getting to experience in the workplace. And so I feel like it was more motivated on things that might help me. And that I can't say I'm comfortable with that now, but that's what it was. As things evolved and as I got a better sense of the needs of this community, it totally transformed my purpose and my why, and really being how I can be of most service to this community and its needs, and seeing where my skills and contributions can line up to the needs. So I'm grateful for that evolution and my purpose. And so I most definitely get a lot out of it. I hope I'm able to give some of that back in.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, we have thoroughly enjoyed this, London, and we really appreciate you being on the show. And we hope that the message and the mission of Ronald McDonald House is received by many, and that you all continue to grow and touch the many families that you do there. And so we just are very, very thankful for your time this evening.
Well, again, I appreciate you, Toby and Dave, and just love that you've created this platform for us to bring awareness to the different opportunities and ways to get involved and ways to support and connecting those in need with resources. So thank you for all you're doing to shine a light on the good and in our community. There's a lot on the news these days and out there that is not as positive. So it's wonderful to have this, positive message for our community. And thank you for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Hope you have a great evening and a very good week.
You as well.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.